Hello, Timothy.
Hello, what are we learning about today?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We're learning about one of your deepest, most burning questions.
You mean why I look like the mailman?
No.
Oh, you mean where babies come from?
No.
Oh, you mean the question of the meaning as to why we are all here and whether or not life has any meaning at all?
No, Timmy. Today we're going to be talking about something that kids your age love the most.
Fortnite?
The second most.
Vaping?
No. What? How old are you? Today we're talking about trains in the Gilded Age. There was the invention of the wheel. Then, the invention of the panini maker. And somewhere in between these two monumental inventions in human history, we created the railroad system. When Lincoln was shot and killed in 1865, railroads weren't so hip to the jive. There were a mere 35,000 miles of steam railways in the U.S. However, by 1900, the railroads boasted a whopping 192,556 miles.
But where did they get all the land to do that?
Oh, you're still here. Well, you see, Timmy, railroads promoted national unity and economic growth, as well as military and postal benefits the Congress simply couldn't deny. And so in 1862, Washington donated an entire 155,000, 15,500,004,994 acres of land. This, matched with the 49 million more acres donated by the western states, made for an area larger than that of Texas.
Wow, how does acquiring land like that work?
You sure do ask boring questions, Timmy. You see, grasping railroads would acquire land grants in wide belts along the route they wanted to build their road. They could pick alternate mile-square sections, like a checkerboard. Of course, when they weren't building railroads, they kept this land from the other users until 1887, when Grover Cleveland came along and said, "I'm tired of these mother***ing train companies on this mother***ing land. Everyone can come in and settle in the unclaimed public portions of the land grants." Then corporations were all like... But the government gained quite a bit from this. They got decent rates for using the trains for postal service and military traffic. But moreover, granting land to the railroads was a cheaper way to support the growth of trains without having to raise taxes. And nobody likes taxes.
I thought the government used taxes to improve our country and community by funding public schools, parks, city repairs, and other important...
Shut up, Timmy. The government is evil. Any private banker could use the railroads as a form of security in case of any issues, as well as by keeping or selling it as well. In fact, the land railroads were built on weren't really worth much at all until it was ribboned with steel.
Kind of like how my mom says I'm not worth nothing at all. Maybe I should ribbon myself in steel.
The railroads became the magic touch. Cities connected to them would flourish, and those left behind would forever be forgotten.
Like when my mom always forgets me at the grocery store.
Now you're getting it, Timmy. Initially, things were difficult in building the Transcontinental Railroad. But in 1862, after the South seceded, the North basically decided they could do whatever they want. And so the Congress said, "Let's bolster this Union, boys!" And so the Union Pacific Railroad was commissioned with federal loans to go west from Omaha, Nebraska.
Who built the railroads?
Well, on the eastern side, Irish immigrants worked tirelessly to build their railroads, singing their favorite song. On the other side, starting in Boomtown, Sacramento, California, the Central Pacific Railroad Company, overseen by the Big Four, was comprised of mainly Chinese immigrant workers. As a matter of fact, the two groups had a race to finish.
Who won?
Well, the Chinese won, likely because of their cultural focus on work ethic.
Is that racist?
Let me check my racist meter. I think we're fine. In 1869, the two ends of the railroads met in Ogden, Utah, where a celebration was held. The Transcontinental Railroad was complete. By the end of the century, 4 other transcontinental lines were built.
It sure was nice of the government to give out all those loans.
They didn't, although they did give generous land grants to everyone. Except Great Northern, because screw you, Great Northern, that's why.
But Great Northern, the last of the 5, spanning from Duluth to Seattle, north of the Northern Pacific, was created by one of the greatest railroad builders of all time, James J. Hill.
This is why your father doesn't love you, Timmy. The problem became that overly optimistic pioneers liked railroads so much that they built them from nowhere to nowhere. And I'm sure you can guess how that went. Not good. It was not good. One reason why these railroads worked so good was because they welded together the eastern networks, notably New York Central. The man with the plan, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Although he started in the steamboating industry, one day when he turned 60, he thought to himself, "By golly, do you know what would be simply superb? Railroads!" And so he made $100 million with his superior railroads and lower rates.
How did he make so much money?
By almost having a monopoly on the railroad industry.
Oh, I love that game.
No, Timmy, this monopoly is much more than a mere game. You see, when a mommy train company and a daddy train company either love each other very much, or one of them has way too much money, they merge together in a beautiful moment of nature. Then, the baby company is born.
Huh, that's strange. That's not how my teacher described it.
Moreover, he popularized one of the most important railroad improvements of all time, the transition from iron rails to steel. The other of these improvements was the invention and use of the Westinghouse air brake, which made trains more efficient and safer.
I bet the trains were super safe.
Well, you're an idiot. The Pullman cars of the 1860s were literally made of wood and had swaying kerosene lamps inside of them. They had almost as many accidents as you do, Timmy.
My mom says if I'm not potty trained by age 7, she's gonna send me back where I came from.
America loved the railroads, which employed more people than anyone else and used up nearly 20% of investment dollars, both foreign and domestic. It boosted the economy through the transportation of raw materials and manufacturing that went into making them. They enabled farmers by carrying them out to their farms and transporting goods, and they enabled cities by bringing people and food to them.
Wow, what a time to be alive.
You mean what a times to be alive. On November 18th, 1883, the U.S. was separated into 4 time zones to prevent wrecks and to help keep railroads on schedule. Before this, time was more localized and based on the sun.
Oh man, railroads helped
everyone.
That's right, Timmy. It was especially the maker of millionaires. Lord of Rails, as some called them, were made rich by these railroads, and thus added a new depth to Wall Street.
Wall Street? My mummy says I can't watch The Wolf of Wall Street till I hit puberty. Hey, mister, what's puberty?
Of course,
This is America.
the land of not being able to have nice things without people who are going to take advantage of it. And so they did. One of the most well-known examples of this was Jay Gould, who, for nearly 30 years, boomed and busted the stocks of various railroad companies.
Wow, human greed sure is a disgusting thing.
That's right, Timmy. And you're a shining example of the next generation making the same mistakes mankind has for ages. A common example of this corruption was a thing called stock watering, where people would inflate their claims about the worth of railroad assets and profit, so they could sell way more stock than necessary. Even the Vanderbilts felt themselves above the law, with Cornelius often making remarks about being above it and the law taking too long.
Wow, at least they didn't have any political influence.
Well, Timmy, once again, you prove that you aren't the sharpest tool in the shed. Oftentimes, railroaders would use their vast wealth to bribe judges and legislators, employ arm-twisting lobbyists, and even elect their own creatures to high office. These people had large, scary amounts of power that surpassed even that of the president, and were driven entirely by their lust for more wealth. What's more is eventually they all teamed up to get rid of the competition and to protect their profits.
Kinda like Suicide Squad?
You know, Timmy, I wish the train that had hit you was moving faster.
Thanks, my dad said the same thing.
Companies eventually shared the profits of business in the given area, and with no competition, they could raise rates on shorter hauls, resulting in farmers paying more rates than large customers who got better deals. This was a monopoly. In the years following the railroad boom, many workers felt like they were being railroaded into bankruptcy due to extremely unfair prices and extremely loose railroad legislation. Now, while an idiot might assume the government was benevolent and let them off the hook, a smart man would know that the government sucks, and they ruled that states didn't have the power to regulate interstate commerce. Only the federal government could do that.
That seems like an unreasonable Supreme Court decision.
God, again, why is the youth of America so infuriating? Everything is about the cool Supreme or snapgrams or human rights.
What does human rights mean?
It means nothing right now, silly. We're in the 1800s. Well, after they ruled out state interference in railroads, the government had to do something to appease the unruly farmers.
Yes, like Farming Simulator 2012, the best one.
You know, Timmy, sometimes you're just so idiotic. 2017 is obviously the superior game, with the implementation of shaders, colorblind mode, pigs, and soy. FS17 checks all the boxes in your classic farming game. Anyways, Grover Cleveland knew that to make it easier on the workers, he had to do something. So he passed the Interstate Commerce Act in 1887. This prohibited some of the railroad's more mischievous habits, like rebates or discrimination against shippers.
Huh, so they finally got peace.
Not exactly, but if you want to believe that, sure, kid.
So how did this end?
Well, everything pretty much got absolutely no-scoped by the bankers 30 years later.
That's epic.
Trains should not be operated without the proper licensing. If you or a loved one has come in contact with a moving train, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Contact your physician before using trains.